Hi, Chris Kuzmal here. Today we're going to begin to implement the code for linked lists. A linked list contains elements. Elements have three things in them: a previous element, a key, and a next element. Let's create an element. To create an element in REPL, we're going to need to add a file called element.java. Actually, I just did that. And this is going to be public class element. And I'm going to have those three fields. It's going to be previous, next, and key. Of course, they need to have a type. The previous element is of type element. Da-dun, da-dun. That's not surprising, but this does make this a recursive data structure defined in terms of the data structure itself. The next is also an element. The default value for an object in Java that is declared but not initialized is null. And so these are going to be null, which is going to take, null is going to take on the same role as nil in a typical book that you have. I'm going to make our key of type integer. One might argue that it ought to be of type object, but I'm going to make it an integer to keep things concrete. To have an element, to create an element, I need to have a constructor. And for the moment, I'm only going to specify the key. And I use underbar key as my notation for the argument, which is a way of saying that the field key is going to be assigned the argument key, or the argument underbar key. So I should write a little bit of test code. I wonder what's up with this. That might just be the open curly brace, close curly brace. I'm suspecting that's just an artifact that's hanging out. So I'm going to create an element. FE, my first element, is new element 3. So this should be an object which has a null previous, a null next, but contains something in it. Let's see whether or not this code runs without error. It runs without error, but there's no test cases. There's no number of tests passed to demonstrate that in fact our code is working at all. So we really do want to verify that this is correct. And so we're going to write a test constructor, public Boolean test constructor. And all it's going to do is the same things we have here. And we will check to see whether or not FE's key is 3. Now, we also, so then we can just say if test constructor then we increment our pass and we decrement our fail. And we have to spell test constructor correctly. And we need, we're going to make a global variable pass and fail. Notice I can create these global variables after the main. And oh, this needs to be a static test constructor because I'm not creating an object. And the pass and fail also need to be static. Otherwise, they're considered to be instance variables. I need to spell constructor right, constructor. Now when I run, well, the good news is presumably it doesn't fail, but I need to actually print out how many passes and fails I have, and it will presumably have passed. And that's the beginning of our linked list code.